This is a revision of Strategy Business Leader for the exam period September and December 2020. And this is question 1. Briefing note section 1. The principal-agent relationship of BCO fiduciary relationship. The BCO's Board of Justice, acting as the principal, is responsible for good governance, but they rely on many different people to be able to govern well, such as staff, volunteers, importantly, the management board. In the principal-agent relationship, the principal engages the agent to perform a service on their behalf, which involves delegations, some decision-making authority to agent. The relationship creates a fiduciary relationship between the Board of Trustees and the Management Board, which means the Management Board, acting on behalf of the trustee, must carry out the assigned task with the principal's best interest, and therefore those of the BCO's diverse stakeholders, as a priority. Represent stakeholders. The Board of Trustees, as the principal, represents the interests of the BCO stakeholders, which will include not only those stakeholders and organizations which has contributed or donated funds to the charity, but also the people and animals living in the wildlife communities we operate in, our staff, our wildlife park visitors, and the wider community. The Management Board, as the agent, undertakes responsibility assigned by the Board of Trustees. The Management Board therefore has obligation to undertake their responsibility assigned with a certain level of skill and care, using the particular skills and expertise each member has been employed for. Reward. As agent, the Management Board is financially rewarded to discharge responsibilities delegated to it, without conflicting with the interests of the stakeholders which the Board of Trustees represents. The Board of Trustees is not financially rewarded for their role, as it effectively acts on behalf of the stakeholders of the BCO. 2. Advantages of the two-tier board structure. One advantage of this governance arrangement is that there is a clear and distinct separation of duties between the monitoring function of Board of Trustees and those being monitored, Management Board. Additionally, supervisory role of the Board of Trustees acts as an effective safeguard against management inefficiency and against fraud or irregular activities. All of this helps to maintain the trust of stakeholders, in particular those donating funds to the BCO, who will seek reassurance that their funds are being used appropriately by the BCO. A further advantage is that the Board of Trustees, in its supervisory role, will consider the needs of all of our stakeholders, including staff and wider community, to ensure that their interests are also taken into the account and the actions the Management Board do not affect them adversely. The two-tier system also encourages transparency within the charity, between the two board levels, and between the Board of Trustees and stakeholders they represent. This transparency is particularly important in the charitable sector, whereby the charity must be accountable for the diverse range of funds it receives. 3. How our mission and objectives meet stakeholder needs. For most profit-seeking organizations, the mission and objectives are largely driven by the needs of the principal, that is, the owners or shareholders. In particular, the objectives will be mainly focused on ensuring that the principal's returns are maximized. However, as already discussed, our principals acting on behalf of a wide range of stakeholders, and therefore our mission and objective will have different focus. Our mission is firmly focused on protecting and conserving the world's wildlife for the future. This meets the needs of a wide range of stakeholders, including the wildlife itself and the people who live and work within the communities in which they live. In addition, the wider community will also benefit from the world in which wildlife can thrive and live safely in its natural habitat. The first objective of protecting and returning the 100 threatened species to their natural habitats meet the needs of the threatened species themselves and communities which they come from. Therefore, this objective meets our stakeholder needs. The second objective of investment in 100 wildlife habitat projects across the world through training and education for local staff and communities also meets the needs of our stakeholders, including staff and local people who require the specific knowledge and skills to ensure the habitat projects are successfully run and managed and that donors' funds are used effectively. The third objective is to ensure 1 million people are better connected with nature meets the needs of our wider communities and population to understand and appreciate the natural world they live in. If the wider population appreciate and understand the natural world better, this will impact directly on the wildlife species. The BCO is ultimately set up to protect. B. Briefing Notes Section 2 Financial Performance Evaluation. The BCO maintains more or less a steady state from 20x0 to 20x1 based on levels of income and expenditure, although our surplus decreased by $422,000. Income from charitable activities increased by 5% in the year, much of which was as a result of administration to the World Wild Park. However, visitor numbers to the Wildlife Park were down by nearly 2%, 258,583 compared to 263,599 in the financial year 2080, meaning that the increase in revenue from wildlife park admissions came from the increased price we charge this year to visitors to enter the wildlife park. This is the concern as visitors to the wildlife park are the key source of income. If visitors continue to fall, then this could be a knock-on impact on income from other sources, such as individual membership and income from the wildlife shop and cafe, if less visitors use our facilities. However, despite the fall in visitor numbers, the income from the wildlife park shop and cafe increased by 15%. This is encouraging and demonstrates that our shop and cafe are popular and potential source for future revenue growth. This suggests that our shops and cafes are operating effectively. Corporate membership income has grown significantly, 133%, from $90,000 to $210,000, but is still a very small proportion of our income, 1%, and we must look to grow this through further work with corporate partners. Individual membership grows only slightly, which we need to improve on. However, this could be looked at positively, considering that visitor numbers to the wildlife park dropped in the year, and therefore our conversion rate of converting visitors to members has in fact improved. Therefore, our on-site membership marketing activities appear to be operating effectively, but we still need to do more to convert visitors to members and attract more visitors overall. Two areas of concern in relation to our revenue from commercial activities are from education and training programs and donations and legacies. Income from running education and training programs was 6% lower than last year. This combined with the KPI showing that we run fewer external education and training programs in 20x1 compared to 20x0 is concerning. When considering our long-term objective of increasing our commitment to educating and training our stakeholders, this clearly does not meet this objective. This is something we must focus on in the coming years if we are able to ensure that our strategic objectives are met. Donations, grants, and legacies income reduced by nearly 16%. This is particularly concerning, as these are our primary sources of income. However, we could perceive this as a positive direction, as our total income in fact increased in 20x1. Despite this increase in its primary revenue source, meaning we are improving other revenue sources. In 20x0, donation, grants, legacies were 42% of total income, whereas in 20x1 it was 35% of total income. This indicates that we have reduced our reliance on this income source and increased other sources to compensate, although we should note that some of this has come from the sales of property assets, which is not a recurring or sustainable source of commercial income. This means we must not be complacent as the donations, grants, and legacies will continue to be important sources of income in the future. Therefore, we must try to maintain our active work in seeking these sources of income and looking for ways to support that donor income with sustainable commercial initiatives. Expenditure has increased in the year by nearly 2.5%, which, although not overly concerning, must be something we monitor closely. We spend significantly more on animal support costs, which increased in the year by 8%. This is something that we must investigate further. This rise may be due to inflationary pressure on the underlying cost of resources, veterinary costs, animal feed and staff pay rise, or it could suggest we are being inefficient in our cost management procedures and are not controlling this cost effectively and making the best use of our resources. We have obligation to obtain the optimum value for money for our stakeholders, and we must manage our funds appropriately. Costs of commercial operations reduced by 15%, which is very positive. This may be due to fewer properties to manage. We sold a property in 20x1, or it could be because we have managed our shop and cafe more efficiently. We may be able to learn lessons from our cost management process in our commercial operations and transfer this to our management of animal welfare costs. Non-financial performance evaluation, key performance indicators. The overall number of staff we employ decreased, but we are able to attract more volunteers to work for the BCO. Although this should be seen as positive factor, it is that we are clearly attracting external support for our activities. We must be careful that we do not use volunteers to replace the skills and expertise of employed staff, some of whom will be trained experts. Obviously, we will need to monitor whether it is skilled animal welfare staff who are being replaced by volunteers or more unskilled temporary staff in non-animal related areas such as the visitor center staff, loss of expert staff, and a net reduction in human capital may impact detrimentally on our effectiveness. As mentioned above, visitor numbers to the wildlife park are down, but on average, each visitor actually spend more money when they visited. 3.27 dollar, right? This is a positive factor, and we should look to investigate how we can encourage visitors to spend more in the wildlife park by increasing and continually improving the facilities and attractions we have on site, and also investigate more fully whether customers spend the most. Training days were down on 20x0 as uh, as two were external training programs run. These outcomes do not fit with our objectives of increasing education and training, and we must address this if we are to achieve our stated strategic objectives. Our programs to reintroduce animals to the wild continue to be successful as more animals will return to their natural habitats in 20x1 compared to 20x0. This should be a key focus on our performance measurement, as ultimately this is the reason for our existence. All of our activities are carried out with this as our main objective.